So Aidan Fitzmaurice was with us on the day Colin Healy released a statement, and he was with us on Monday talking about Stephen Bradley's comments after both Shamrock Rovers. And so, given what happened last night, you're the perfect man to return to the studio and talk to us about Stephen Bradley again. Really, striking, strong comments in what is like a press conference ahead of a huge match for him personally. So it starts with it being put to Bradley in the press conference that there's an understanding his programme notes didn't appear in the programme on Sunday, and he's asked, what's happened there, and we understand things about Colin Healy, amongst others, were in the programme notes. So take it away, Stephen Bradley.
Yeah, look, firstly, I spoke after the game, not out of anger or emotion of losing the game that we'd lost. It was out. I'd given programme notes on the 28th of January and somehow they go missing and don't show up in the programme. I'm very passionate about this league. I'm very passionate about growing it. I love this league. I love this club. I spoke about that. I spoke with the other manager's comments. I spoke about Colin Healy, who I think how he's being treated as being disgraceful. I understand to a certain extent what Colin and his family have gone through the last 18 months. He's lost his wife, his young daughters. I've lost my mum. I'm in at the moment with Josh. I could fully sort of understand where Colin is emotionally, how he's feeling. These past 18 months I was down at the funeral, and incredibly strong family. His son got up and spoke and was incredible. If anyone knows Colin, he's one of the nicest men you'll come across in football. Football can be a horrible game. He's one of the nicest men you'll come across. And for us to treat one of our best young coaches and managers how we treated him shouldn't be acceptable. And I feel the position I'm in, I'm privileged to be at this club and in this position. And like I said, I feel passionate about this league, about growing it. And that's not just on the pitch with the players, that's with the managers and coaches. I think we've got some really brilliant coaches and managers, and they've got to have respect. I don't think that's why I'm pushing for this LMA to get off the ground, and we're nearly there. But how Colin was treated is can't be acceptable. It's not acceptable. I've considering what him and his family have gone through, he has to be dealt with more respect and more compassion than what he was, and I have a responsibility, I feel, to speak up when I see wrong, and I think that's wrong.
So there were many strands then suddenly in the ether. Philip Quinn here asks about the programme notes and what happened.
I haven't, Philip, no. But like I said, I know people from the outside and didn't know, I understand, will think it was an emotional reaction to losing the game. These programme notes were wrote 3 weeks back. And the reason I spoke about the game is because they were supposed to be in the programme, they weren't. And it's the first time that they were going to be spoken about. So I thought, no, I'm not letting this go, I have to speak. I don't know where they've gone. I am working to find out, and Mark has helped me with that, to find out where they've gone. But it's very convenient that they're not in the programme.
So things escalate. Do you feel the right people are running Irish football?
No.
What are they doing wrong and what would you like to do right? And I don't want to take away from the match tomorrow, but if you wouldn't mind giving your views, because they are important.
I couldn't tell you what they're doing wrong because we haven't got enough time here, We'd need a long chat. But I think looking at how the treatment, like I said, of Colin, you don't understand Irish football, you don't understand Irish people. That's not how we treat each other. For too long they've been allowed to treat us like that, and it needs to stop. And people lose their jobs in football. I could get sacked tomorrow. You understand that when you're a manager. But there's ways of doing your business and there's ways of doing things. And Colin's situation smacks of arrogance and disrespect. And the short answer is no. I don't think we have to understand that football is not run on PowerPoint presentations. You got to understand that, It's about people. It's about connections. About understanding that we're not just little old Ireland. Give us a tap on the back and off you go.
And then very finally, the logical follow-on question was, well, Do you have faith in Mark Canham? Do you have faith in the CEO, David Carell?
How long did it take us to get a manager? He was the first choice.
I take it you don't believe that, but that the reaction you gave there.
Do you believe it?
Of course not.
Yes, I think we're on the same page with that one, like, you know. I could keep going and going and going, but like I said, the Colin stuff just tipped me over the edge. It's not good enough. The only player I can think of that spoke out was Denise O'Sullivan, which is we can't go back to the days of it being a dictatorship, like, you know, people afraid to speak. I'm not going to do that. I'm employed by Shamrock Rovers. I'm employed to do best by this club and defend this club and defend this league, and that's what I'll do.
So he declined to specifically say, I have no confidence in Carell, I have no confidence in Canham. But as you heard 20 seconds earlier, he said he had no confidence in the people running Irish football. So it probably amounts to much the same. Aidan Fitzmaurice here in studio. Where do you start?
The fact that we're even talking about it, I mean, the fact that Stephen Bradley, often in a situation like this, you know, they might deflect the questions. Stephen Bradley could say, well, we have a big game tomorrow, we're trying to focus. He's a huge problem in that game because it's one that Shamrock Rovers 1-0 up, but a lot of players injured. He really has a tough task anyway, but Danny Mandry looks like he's gone as well now. He has to plan a team. It looks like he's going to have a very light bench. That game could potentially go to extra time, so he's maybe going into half an hour trying to save their season, go further than any Irish club has ever gone, and maybe will go before. And he's dealing with this, but he wanted to say it the same way as he said it after the Bohemians game on Sunday. There's a lot of anger there with issues there with the FAI. I mean, the easy thing after the game on Sunday would have been to credit the FAI for helping to facilitate the game and arrange the game and smooth the pathway to the game happening and having 33,000 people at a game. But there are deeper issues for Stephen Bradley and reminds me of what Dion Caldwell said about the World Cup, that it was achieved in spite of, not because of Vera Pauw. And maybe, I'm not putting words in Stephen Bradley's mouth, but that stuff that's happening at Shamrock Rovers now is, you know, because of support from the FAI, it's in spite of them, and the lack of what he would see as support. Coming back to earlier comments we referenced earlier this week about Hamer Hallgrimsson essentially saying that players would be better off furthering their careers outside of Ireland than staying in Ireland.
Yeah, we discussed the Hallgrimsson situation already. I think the comments from Hallgrimsson were okay-ish. Maybe it's not ideal, the international manager intimating that players will do well in Europe for Shamrock Rovers and you know, their careers might progress. But I thought it was well-meaning. He wasn't saying you need to leave this country to play for the Irish national team. But it follows if you do really well for a club and you progress up the football ladder, is not a good thing. Would we all not like to see Michael Noonan playing at the highest level he possibly can in years to come? Maybe Hallgrimsson as coach shouldn't say it. He did. It drew a strong reaction from Bradley. We debated that one on Monday. I think in the instance of Colin Healy, there's probably no debate. I think every football person in this country listening to Bradley talk about Healy is in full agreement with him. And
we're now at, I think, crisis point for the FAI. The FAI really need, as no need to go over all ground, but that we went forensic detail the press conference when they didn't deal with the Colin issue when they unveiled Carl Award. Yeah. It was an absolute car crash of crisis management.
You thought they came across in that press conference as very cold?
I no emotion. I put that question to David Carell. I don't sense any emotion here, and he said, "Yes, we do have emotion." Like it wasn't emotion. Emotion will be. I hear what you're saying. I've reached out to. I've texted Colin this morning, and we're going to meet him, or we're going to sort it out, or we're going to do it. There was no emotion, and there isn't in this case. And again, I feel sorry for Carla Ward and her players. It's her first game. This again has dragged it in, and there was a lot of good stuff this week. Alan Mahan coming into the squad as assistant, he spoke very well. I think that's a brilliant addition to the. Carla Ward is a brilliant hire. Alan Mahan is great to have him back in Irish football after being in England for 30 years. But again, we're talking about the Colin Healy situation, which hasn't moved on from when it was. Colin Healy has had no resolution, he's no satisfaction, and the anger that is there, and the FAI have not dealt with that as an association. I think the board really need to act in this now, and they need a strategy to deal with this, because this issue is not going away. Every week, every day this goes on, they're losing. The headlines today are not about Carla Ward's fresh start and what team is she going to have, what are Turkey like, what crowd will we get in Tallaght Stadium. The talk is about Colin Healy again, because the FAI board responsibilities on the board and the executive, who answer to the board to explain. And again, we unfortunately now once again we're dealing with personalities, because Stephen Bradley is clearly talking about the two key officers, David Carell, CEO, and Mark Hannam, the Chief Football Officer.
He's working to get to the bottom of what happened to his programme notes.
That's still a mystery. I spoke to somebody in Bohemians this morning who said they didn't get them. So I honestly don't know. So is this as simple as it's in a spam email? Was it not sent? I honestly don't know. That we still need to know where did they go.
Do you know, would it be customary for Bradley, in this instance, the opposing manager, to email or send those notes directly to Bohemians as the home side, or would they go into the FAI, who then relayed them?
It would have, and disclosure here, because I write a column for the Bows programme, and I do think it was a brilliant production for the game on Sunday. And
did your column appear?
Yeah.
And you censored Stephen Bradley's, is that?
I stopped Stephen Bradley getting in, but it was a brilliant production. It was input. There was input from people who write for the Shamrock Rovers programme. There was content about. There was a feature on Dermot O'Neill and Anne O'Neill, who played for both clubs. Tony Cousins. It wasn't all Bohemians propaganda.
Sure.
It was input from people who write. It was a cross club effort with all the proceeds going to Barrettstown charity. But I haven't got that from firm. My initial information is that Bohemians are saying they didn't get Bradley's notes. So did they get lost along the way where they stopped from going out? I honestly don't know.
Yeah, because the intimation or the suspicion people would have is, well, Bradley's column dealt with Colin Healy's treatment. It was critical of the international team manager, and so I had assumed, the FAI must have seen this and pulled it. That would be the more damning suspicion.
I don't know, but I would doubt very much. The editor of the Bohemians programme, I doubt very much if the FAI would have had oversight. It's quite a strong programme, and there's a column there by a guy called Robert MacDonald, who was very offbeat and has often been, as most Bows fans are, more critical of their own club than anybody else. So it is, a lot of the content is quite sharp. It's not all propaganda. So I honestly don't. There may be a deeper issue, and maybe at some stage the content was flagged as being they didn't want to possibly upset the FAI, who had facilitated that relations. Bohemians are going to need help from the FAI in the next couple of years. A, if they need to go back to the Aviva on a more regular basis, and B, to complete the project. I don't think so. So we still need to find that out. But the information I had this morning is that Bohemians simply did not get the notes. Bradley and Shamrock Rovers made, but I would imagine that Bradley would have written his notes himself, sent them on to somebody in Shamrock Rovers who were coordinating the Rovers end of the Rovers content, because it was a cross-club effort, the programme on Sunday. Okay.
Well, regardless, he doesn't need a programme to have a platform. These comments, have gone far and wide. This is kind of the talking point in Irish football now, that the manager of Shamrock Rovers, in effect, again, he declined to say, I have no confidence in Canham, I have no confidence in Carell, but in effect said, I do not feel the right people are running Irish football. Do you have any insight into the nature of his relationship with people in the FAI? Like, there's a really strong feeling here. Has he had many dealings with them? Is it just an interested observer looking in from afar? What's going on here?
I would think there's a general feeling of a lack of real understanding for what Shamrock Rovers are trying to do, and an awful lot of what they're trying to do is stuff that I think in other countries the National Association would be doing. So, like, for example, education, Ashfield College, where Gavin Mizuno went to continue his second level education before he went to Man City, where Michael Noonan is going to go. There are TY schemes, an awful lot of what Shamrock Rovers are doing. Now, maybe the FAI will come back and say they facilitate with grants and they are helping out in it, but Shamrock Rovers are coming up with an awful lot of things that they feel are originated and developed by themselves. That in Belgium, for example, that Shamrock Rovers equivalent, Anderlecht or Standard Liège, they will get more help from the FAI. I think part of it here is personalities, that it's coming down to David Carell is still probably only settling into the role as CEO, but Mark Hannam has been around for a while. I do think from Bradley, part of this stems to, he referenced it in his press conference yesterday about the manager hunt, how it took so long. Bradley was very aggrieved during the whole manner, the way that was done, and the lack of respect. And he said all along he didn't think Bradley didn't see himself as a contender. He felt Damien Duffy would have said this on the record and privately. He felt Damien Duffy. Bradley said, if it's a choice between two people, give it to Damien Duffy. He's far more qualified and far more able to do the job than he would be. But the lack of respect, he mentioned that when the approach came to Damien Duff, for example, my understanding is that it wasn't a formal approach from the FAI to speak to Damien Duff with getting permission from Shelbourne. It was a phone call to somebody, can you ask Damien? And similarly with Stephen Bradley, when the FAI did go to meet him, my information is that Jonathan Hill was late for his meeting with Stephen Bradley, and Stephen Bradley left before the meeting took place. He was there on time, and Bradley just does not tolerate his lack of professionalism, and that Bradley and Duff both strongly felt that they were just box ticking in meetings. So if they were asked, "Are you considering domestic candidates?" they could say, "Yes, we met Stephen Bradley and Damien Duff," when they were never for a second in the frame. Now, if you look back when Heimer Haugemsson was unveiled, the wish list the FAI outlined, what they were looking for was international management experience. Not just that, but coaching at a major finals and success at a major finals, which Heimer Haugemsson had. So when we were all trying to look at people who are in contention and domestic clients and domestic and people like that, that would have immediately ruled out Stephen Bradley and Damien Duff because they didn't have that senior management experience already at senior international level. But that lack of respect for Damien Duff and Bradley and Duff have both referenced that it wasn't done properly. It was just, and they both felt that you're not going to give me this job. You're just meeting me,
Yes.
so you can say at board level, "Oh, did you meet? Yes, we met Damien Duff."
Yeah.
So I think it goes back to that and a lack of respect for what they've achieved, and that, as I said, the Shamrock Rovers are striving ahead. And to credit Shamrock Rovers what they're doing off the field, that's hugely important what they're doing. That Michael Noonan, he can't go away till he can't go to the UK till 18. He could go to Europe. But that he can carry on his education as a Shamrock Rovers player at a scheme that's funded, so he can get proper second level education in his scheme funded by Shamrock Rovers, continue his career. So he's not leaving school at 16 with just a junior cert, and future proofing Michael Noonan, because we all know Michael Noonan is amazing talent. He could break his leg tomorrow and his career finished, but he will still no matter what happens after Shamrock Rovers, he will hopefully have a leaving cert in his back pocket that is being arranged and funded by the club. I think just that frustration from Shamrock Rovers that they're not taken seriously, and that feeds into what Heimer Haugemsson said, that you need to leave. I was thinking about it again because I know we had a back and forth the other day about this, and I was thinking about
He never said. I think we have to be clear in language. He never said you need to leave.
He never said you need to leave.
No,
he said your career would, whatever phrase he used, career progression, or progress your career by going abroad.
But if you get a move to a big club in England, that is career progression.
But I think as I'm not going over all ground again, but Dara Burns, if you take Dara Burns as a case study of that, Dara Burns was on loan to Shamrock Rovers, still under contract at MK Dons, clearly leaving there, so he was going to move somewhere. His options were to re-sign for Shamrock Rovers. Other clubs in Ireland would love to have him. That was the logical one: re-sign for ShamrockRovers, or go to England. And he went to Grimsby Town in League Two, because
but I don't
he hears
think
the words from the Ireland manager that you're better off being abroad.
I guarantee you that no player is deluded enough to think that if I'm playing for Grimsby in League Two, I'm going to play for Ireland.
Not play for Ireland, but you need to play abroad.
Not to play for Ireland. No, not League Two, Grimsby. That's not what happens.
I don't. But to further your career, you need to go abroad to further your career.
Depends where you go. You know.
We don't have the same argument again the second time in
Look,
a couple of days. But
I understand someone saying maybe it's a bit misguided for Hallgrimsson to say that publicly. Okay, think it. I was just, he wasn't there to defend himself. Bradley had really had a go at him. I was just saying, look, in the main, he was just very complimentary of Rovers. They're doing brilliantly, and you know what? Some guys are going to look at these players and scout them, and they may progress their career. In the same way, touch wood, if he wants to, and if Duff wants to, maybe they go and have bigger managerial careers outside the country, and no one would begrudge them that.
No, and I think Shamrock Rovers realise that, and what they've done with their academy model is they do know they will sell. So they sold Liam Scales, they sold Gavin Bazunu, first team players. They've also sold academy players. So Ika Razi and Naj Razi went to clubs in Como and clubs in France and Italy, and they're progressing their career. And it's great to see one of them made his debut for League One debut for Reims recently. So they're So you're not saying to them you cannot leave Ireland, but to broaden the conversation that it's not that you have to leave. That
for sure. Yeah. And look, if Hallgrimsson had said nobody playing in Ireland will ever be picked for the national team, the league's just not good enough, then all bets are off.
And the wider argument as well. We sometimes think this: why isn't everybody? A lot of players in the league are not Irish; they're not eligible. So it's not as if we've 100% of the playing population of Ireland are Irish. The Waterford Sligo Rovers game last week, quite a lot of foreign players. I'm not criticising; that's just a fact of life. How many English players are playing for Chelsea or Arsenal at the moment? That's just a fact of life.
Yeah.
But the general point, but I think it just adds into the frustration that from Bradley and Shamrock Rovers that they're not being taken seriously, and what they've done is remarkable. That for years we thought, could we get through to the group stages? Shelbourne, where they nearly went close in 2004, went bust. That the breakthrough from Shamrock Rovers under Michael O'Neill, then another breakthrough with Dundalk, and so the next phase up was Dundalk getting points at group stages. Dundalk again, difficult period because it was in COVID, so they played Arsenal in the Aviva in front of an empty stadium because of COVID. But now for Shamrock Rovers to not only get points but to progress and Shamrock Rovers looking to progress, and they would feel that as a club they're not being A, supported, and B, taken seriously by the authorities. And again, it doesn't help that Halgrimsson hasn't been at the games. He's not a no. He doesn't. He would argue he doesn't go to games in England either. But so, do you go into optics? Do you say, well, John O'Shea should be there? Is John O'Shea there to scout players, or just to be there for the cameras to tick a box and say that he was there? But just, I think again, it comes back to Bradley, and we spoke with this the other day. I was wondering who's the biggest voice in football. I don't know who in England. Say I don't know, but I would imagine people like Roy Keane, Gary Lineker, probably broadcasters or ex-players are the people who dominate the drive the agenda. People stop down and sit down and listen to what Gary Lineker or Paul or a lot of pundits have to say. The two biggest voices in Irish football are Damien Duff and Stephen Bradley, who can back it up with success. Shamrock Rovers 4 in a row. Damien Duff is leading his team into the Champions League this year. They can lead their team in, and I think they have that freedom now. He did mention dictatorship in a previous era where you couldn't address these issues. I've referenced this before, but to me it sticks out as one of the key moments of the John Delaney era when Tony Cousins was managing Longford Town. They played away to Limerick where I think using whatever ground they're using at the time, it was a terrible ground, shouldn't have been past fit. One of his players got injured in the warm-up because the pitch was bobbly. Tony Cousins in his post-match interview referenced that this pitch was not fit for use, it should not have been passed. He had to change his game plan. The FAI's response was not to address that issue. They charged Tony Cousins with bringing the game into disrepute. That's where we were under the John Delaney era, where you could not. The simple truth was Irish football is great, it's on the way up, and everything is in-house. We talk about it in-house. If Tony Cousins has an issue, he doesn't say it in a press conference. He comes to the club and we deal with it. We're beyond that now. And Stephen Bradley, as I said before, the idea of punishing Damien Duff or Stephen Bradley for his comments, they would not dare.
The balance of power has shifted.
It is, and they can dominate, and they can say really, and it's a very, very strong voice. Again, look at social media today, look at the comments. RTE coverage last night, Richard Sadley was talking about it, the back pages of the papers today.
I want to come to that. So let's just finish in this, because it feels like something's brewing here. Sadley was asking RTE about the Bradley comments, and at one stage he's like, I think this is really directed at Mark Canham, and he said like there's a string of complaints against Mark Canham and how he's treated people or interacted with people, and Joanne Cantwell said, well, hang on, he's not here. You said a string of complaints. Stephen Bradley's talking about Colin Healy in this instance. What's this string of complaints you're talking about? We have to be fair to people if they aren't here. And Sadlier's response suggested we are not nearly done here.
Maybe this isn't the time or the place to go into all the details, because I think the main focus of Stephen's comments is on the Colin Healy situation, and that's a window into the treatment or the calibre of the people that are running the Irish football. And I think there is a lot of gripes. You could line up a lot of other people other than Stephen Bradley who will echo what Stephen is saying and will absolutely jump behind the sentiments. I'm careful of how much I can say here, because I know a lot of things that maybe will come out in the next little while.
I don't know what he's talking about there, so that's up to Richie to speak there. That suggests there is a wider, a deeper issue, and the Colin Healy thing isn't going away.
This is crisis now.
It is crisis, and part of it comes back to how the crisis would. The FAI failed very badly to deal with the initial Colin Healy crisis. I think how they handled it. It's also come down to personalities. That Jonathan Hill, a lot of people who interact, and again, except Jonathan Hill isn't here to defend himself, so he would counter what I'm saying.
Sure.
A lot of people found him very difficult to deal with, very overbearing, very arrogant. The fact that he didn't live in the country, which was a huge issue for people, that you took a job in a country that has a sea dividing between the country where you live and you chose not to live in the country. Mark Hanham does live here. He would argue that he's engaged and he's going to games, but there is a feeling that this is people coming in from abroad. And there was a little bit of this with when you had two Dutch technical directors, that they were over here telling us what to do, and they will come in, they're the experts, as if all our decades of experience at all, I'm talking all levels of the game, underage, coaching, women's, men's, League of Ireland, amateur, that these Dutch people will come in and tell us what to do. And I think there's an element of that from people within the game, that is the feeling from Mark Canham as well, that he is the expert. He's come in, he's worked for the Premier League, he knows everything. He's done the deals to bring in Carla Ward and Heimer Halgrimsson, that he knows better than everybody here. Mark Canham, I'm sure if he was on the other end of this table, would deny that. He said he listens, he engages. That is not the impression that people get of his interactions with people. And that was summed up for me in that press conference with the Carla Ward, and when Mark Canham and David Carell both sat there and just did not recognise the magnitude of what they were saying and the magnitude of the Colin Healy story and what had actually happened. And Stephen Bradley referenced it. The extra bit of this is the personal family trauma. Colin Healy's been a brilliant servant for Irish football for decades. Everything he was asked to do, turned up when he knew he wouldn't play for the national team, coached, managed, did everything else, got involved in the women's game. He did everything along the personal trauma of losing his wife to cancer at a young age, having a young family to raise himself, and that the FAI still haven't acted on that. And the board need to look at this. The FAI board really need to get on top of this Colin Healy issue and deal with it and say they can't go back and sack Alan Mahan and promise Colin Healy a job, but they need to heal that rift because it's simmering. Coaches, managers are funny. A lot of them, hate each other on the sideline, but they're actually the same underneath. They've the same problems. As Bradley said, he could be sacked tomorrow. Rovers lose 6 games in a row and he could be out of a job. Damien Duff could be sacked. And that's the nature of the management. There's a basic respect for how you treat people, and how Colin Healy was treated by the FAI, the overseeing body for football in this country. All the phrases you learn about safeguarding and Ismorling, Pelnaharan and all this, and they're trying to foster the game and everything else, and you should have opportunities. If you're a boy or a girl, doesn't matter what level, you can have a disability, we have a cerebral palsy team at all levels, you can aspire to be respected and looked after playing Irish football. And Colin Healy was treated abysmally by his employers, and the FAI haven't dealt with it, still not dealing with it. The board really need to get on top of this because it's not going away. Every week this goes on, they're losing. There's no coming back. You can't win this PR. Colin Healy is going to win this war. Stephen Bradley won the war yesterday. Look at the media today. What are people talking about? Nobody defending the FAI. Everybody who's reading what Stephen Bradley said is saying, you know what, he's right. What he's done, he's got a team to 90 minutes of another phase of European competition on a budget that is very small compared. If they get through, they could play Legia Warsaw. Their budget is probably 5 times that of Shamrock Rovers. He's done that. And he feels disrespect from the people at the head of the association. Why is that? This isn't going away. The FAI now are in crisis point, and they need to address this.
Aidan Fitzmaurice, thanks very much.
Thanks, Joe.